Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Well, welcome back, everyone. This is one of those topics that you don't hear a lot. I'm going to go right there, get right to it, talking about funerals. It's a way of life. It is a fact of life. We're here for a certain amount of time, so you want to make the most of it, and especially make the most of somebody's remembrance and celebration when they passed on. We are going to look at the importance of saying goodbye, actually why funerals matter. And this is Deceased and Assist with Jerry Oliverie, who has two wonderful family-owned funeral homes in New Jersey, and she's back with us. How are you today?
Good. Great to be back. Love the topic today.
Yeah, we take it for granted knowing, a passing is going to come and do a funeral, but there's a lot going on within the funeral, right down to somebody saying goodbye, somebody grieving, right?
Right. So, yeah, really the significance of funerals and the grieving process. So that's kind of like what we want to talk about and then break it down into different portions of that. So the significance, of course, is that the funerals will foster a healing and help honor and celebrate the lives of the ones that we love. And today we want to explore why funerals are important, how they support that grieving process, and the ways they can bring people together with remembrance and healing, right? Because funerals aren't just ceremonies. They can be essential rituals that help process loss, honor loved ones, find a sense of closure. For families who are seeking like a compassionate support from funeral homes and understanding that role we play and how we can provide comfort and clarity during this challenging time, right? So that's what we want to kind of cover today. Funerals provide a time to reflect and honor. Well, what does that mean? Well, a funeral is an opportunity so that we can pause and reflect on the life of a loved one. It's a chance to share those stories and celebrate the achievements, acknowledge the impact they had, our loved one, on the world, us individually, our family as a whole. The collective act of remembering gives families and friends a chance to find that comfort in those shared memories, right? Whether we're laughing or crying, we're sharing, and that's a good thing. Don't forget, tears are healing, so don't be afraid to cry. So funeral homes can often help families personalize those services. It could be unique, favorite music, sharing video tributes, celebrating that journey, maybe a trip, photo register books. And we love to pick our own memorial cards. And then some of the things that we do personally is that maybe a canvas or an acrylic family sign that can go home with you. If they like gardening, we do garden flags, or sometimes we do family pictures throughout their whole life on a blanket or a pillow. But the life celebration items that we provide matter, and it helps people grieve, and they get to take something home with them. Does that help? Does that make sense?
Completely. And I think we forget that it is part of the grieving process to have the funeral, right? Because it's a gathering. We're all social creatures. So that remembrance can foster a lot of the grieving process. It's not just the formatics of what takes place at the funeral. There's a lot more going on here.
Well, because grief starts sometimes before death if somebody's on hospice, and grief can then continue for 2 to 5 years after death. So it may be a natural response. And like I said, the tears are healing, so you should let yourself cry. But the funerals will provide that structure to navigate all of this. The ceremonies give the mourners a chance to express those emotions openly and then begin to process the healing and acknowledge that the death has occurred. So sometimes when we have nothing, it's hard and we don't acknowledge that death, that grief internalizes. I mean, it's been proven that the loved ones then suffer more anxiety and sickness because they haven't had a chance to acknowledge that death, right? So if we incorporate the rituals like a eulogy, prayers, lighting candles. How about what we see this a lot? Bagpipers. I mean, movies always portray bagpipers, right? Releasing doves. We create that safe space and acknowledge the pain while finding solace. So, funeral homes, of course, are experienced in guiding families through these moments and care and sensitivity and planning all those aspects. And there could be things on here I didn't mention. People come up with a lot of different ideas. It's our job to make it happen, make it appropriate, and incorporate it so everybody has a chance to grieve and experience that loss, right? That's our job.
It's doing this and talking about this today gives us a different view of funerals. What's the first word you think of? Sad. It's somewhat negative. We had a passing. Instead of looking at it that way, more of a positive situation, a celebration, a remembrance. We need to look at it that way. I truly believe, that's the stigmatism going with funerals for so many years needs to go away.
It does, because you got to remember, you have a lot of community involvement that can help you through the process. It's not just family. It's not just your best friends. And it's not just the funeral director. So let's think about how important it is if somebody was involved in any kind of social clubs like VFWs, American Legion, the Elks, Knights of Columbus, any of those, they come and they want to come. And they like to do their own little fraternal kind of service. That brings healing.
Sure.
It doesn't have to be religious, right? So think about the act of the pallbearing. So I always tell people, for women, it's more emotional. They have to pick the songs, the readings, and cry. But for men or boys, it's physical. You need to give them a job. They like to pallbear. They like to help you bring their loved one out of their home into your vehicle on their way to the funeral home. They're more physical. So we need to acknowledge that and how the community can help. Maybe the first aiders knew them. Maybe the police knew them. You have a community that you live in. So it reminds us that we're not alone in our sorrow, right? And we're also surprised by who attends the funeral. We could be people we haven't seen in years because we moved. Just remember, there's no invite necessary to come to a funeral. It's open to the public, and we know not who we touch. I had a reverend tell me this once. He incorporates it a lot into his prayers, and I like to steal it from him. I got permission. So we have a quilt of our life, right? Who we touch, who we don't touch, as we grow and we're involved, our beautiful quilt of life becomes our blanket. So sometimes in our quilt are threads of other people. Either they helped us or we helped them. And that's what makes the beautiful pattern. So don't think that by not having a funeral, it's okay. You are denying those people who sometimes you don't even know. They could be a member of AA. You don't know how they helped someone somewhere. They could have been a neighbor, a boy who was just slightly off path. And it took one, word or sentence of guidance to say, I know you're better than that, to turn a person around, and they never forgot. Right? That's your quilt. That's your different threads. That's what makes you a whole human being. So that strength and community support is important. And you just don't realize it until they show up and they talk to your family. Like, I never knew.
Beautifully said. And I'm sure you see it all the time, or you hear of it, where you're at a funeral, whether it's for a loved one or you're just there and you're connected to the family, and there's just this random person that is there. Maybe they walk up to the casket, and then you learn, like, yeah, I knew him or her 30 years ago, and I just saw online that they passed away, and they made a mark in my life, and I just wanted to show up. Like,
well, how many of us, majority of us are parents? What side do we show our kids? What side do we show not just to our friends, but our coworkers? There's a different side of us. Not everybody knows the whole individual, and this is how you get to know them, by those stories and that network coming together. because I see it all the time. Oh my God. I know just from my son, who's very quiet, but he was a fencer. And I would go to all his fencing meets. And people would come up to me because it's an individual and a team sport. So the team members would come up and say, your son is so funny. Like parents would come up too, and they would say, my son loves your son. He says he's hysterical. He's this, he's that. I go, I don't see that side of my son. Tell me some more.
Wow.
So there is like that example. And how do you act towards your kids? You always are like on your best behavior. You're always like, this is a teaching moment, right? You're not talking like,
Yep.
So think about that. When somebody comes to your funeral, they're like, let me tell you about your mom, the crazy stuff she used to do. And I always go to my friends, no, shut up. They don't know that. They don't know that.
It's
going to come out in your funeral.
You bring back a memory for me, and it's a recent one. My mom passed 6 years ago and had surgery with a doctor, and that's not why she passed. The surgery was something else. Like 3 years before, I used the same doctor for the same thing that she dealt with about like 2 months ago. And I'm there and I'm like, do you remember my mom? And he's like, yeah, I'm not really sure I do. And all of a sudden he's like, oh, she was a tough one, but we became really good friends. I'm like, yeah, that's her.
Sorry.
And he's like, yeah, I used to love, after we broke the ice, I used to love talking with her and hearing her viewpoints on things, but you don't know the mark that somebody's made in somebody's life.
Right. And
Yeah.
the funeral gives you that chance to show it and let people bring it to you, share in it, cry in it, laugh in it. Remember, when the funeral's over, a lot of times spouses go home to be by themselves. Their children are grown and gone, maybe don't even live in the area. Grandchildren are at college and gone, or they have their own families, depending on your age. So all of a sudden, you're empty. The funeral gave you that part that let you feel like you were with something, someone, and part of something. Now it's over. And this grief process is going to go on for a very long time, depending on the individual. So we want to give you that chance to bring things with you, some guidance, some act of like maybe getting you into a therapy group, right? Grief therapy. Or, do you have pets at home? Or maybe you should journal or something like that. But we need to get you from before the death happens, while the death happens, and after. And then we encourage the neighbors and friends, like when they're there and they're leaving, and we say, don't forget to give them a call in a couple of weeks. They have a lot right now, but not in a couple of weeks. They're going to feel really, really lonely. Right? So it's important. That community really is, whether it's family or not. And then that celebration of life, like that's a new term, right? That's a new modern way of saying what we're doing, what we're including. Like funerals don't have to be somber anymore. So that's why I'm saying it could be happy. We can focus on uplifting services and reflect on the personality and the passions of the deceased. I encourage people to bring stuff in. A great bowler, bring in his bowling ball and shoes and let's put it on display. Mostly around me, it's golfing. So it's golf clubs, or the plaque from the golf course because they got a hole in one. I have quite a few good golfers down here. I'm always surprised. I'm like, they got a hole in one? They got 2 hole in ones?
Wow.
Bring that stuff in. Let's celebrate those passions. You didn't do that years ago. It was flowers, somber, and behave. This is a sad time. Don't raise your voice. That doesn't happen anymore. The more the laughter, the louder, the better the funeral.
I
right?
totally agree with you. Yeah. There's going to be some sad moments, but when you are allowed to release things and the positivity, it just feels good. Tell me about some of the now we talk about golfing and things like that. Some of the things that maybe somebody has set up within your funeral homes, or maybe even a theme that maybe somebody has done.
So I have had this whole parking lot full of motorcycles because they were, maybe they did rides or they were part of a club. But I've had this whole place filled with motorcycles, one out front by the steps, so when people come in, they have to go by it. I've had antique cars, muscle cars. I had somebody who was working for JCP&L. They came and made this big, beautiful, tribute out of a telephone poles. They cut it down, graved his name in it, did a
Wow.
lot of beautiful things like that. So, I mean, people are very, very creative. You just got to let them do it, That's all. You got to encourage it. You have to ask, well, tell me some more. I don't want just the simple obituary, born, died, relatives. Yeah, give me more. Music, what music, right? We'll make sure that music is playing. We have these things where if we give them a link and they upload pictures besides the simple video that everybody does, we will make this pop-up, and it's all the pictures. You may have seen it. It opens and then it opens again and then opens again. And then all of a sudden you're back to the beginning. And it's got like 35 pictures in it. People like it. Kids are enthralled by it because it looks like a little game, but it's all pictures. So there's all
Love it.
different things. Themes just go on and on and on. You name it. It'll be, I had one lady, she was into different kind of hats and big sunglasses. They gave out her hats and sunglasses. They had them all on display, huge table. They had it inside the funeral home, in the hallway. They said, just take something on your way out. We want to share this with people.
Wonderful. Like now we're opening the door to creativity and sharing somebody's life. And that's like you talk about the beginning and the end, born on, passed away on. We forget about the middle,
The dash of life. It's so important.
Exactly. Yeah. It's got to be a sense of closure too when somebody has a funeral,
So it does give you a sense of closure. They help families heal. You got to remember that, right? Because you're honoring the loved one. So it's a process. The funeral home gives you that compassionate place to navigate this journey beyond so that you can feel that closure. And of course, you need it through time. Like we still do things like 1 year after we send you an anniversary card. We will send a birthday card. We do a whole thing on for Christmas or the holidays. We have a whole ceremony then, and they get this beautiful glass ornament with their loved one's name engraved, date of birth, date of death, so that we can try and help bring you again into community because you're all together, all in the same year of death, and then try and get through the process with closure. And it's not going to happen soon. You need to allow yourself the time to go through the process. Those 5 stages of death, everybody knows. You're angry, right? At first, but eventually you get through the 5 stages and you get to the closure. But there's no timeline, and nobody should tell you what the timeline is. Everybody has a different relationship with that person. And that's the important part we have to remember, because some are not in good relationships. Doesn't mean you don't love them, but you're not in a good place. And I've had families that are married 75 years. Every time I get one of those, I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. They met at 14, they married at 17, they're married 75 years. You're like, whoa, how is that going to affect and have closure on that person? That's going to take longer, because for every day for 75 years, they got up and said, hi, hello, I love you. What do you want for breakfast? Coffee's made, stuff like that. Are you on your way out? Are you coming back? What time will you be home for dinner? All of a sudden, you have no one to worry about. That's a big gap. It's going to take them a long time to process and get to the closure.
What do you want people to know in closing here today about funerals?
I think we're really important, and we're more than a formality, and people who like to poo-poo it and say, oh, that's just a money grab. I think they're not really exploring their emotions and feelings. I think that rituals really do help families, and I think you do need the community to heal and remember the loved one and not just dismiss it like, well, they're old. I mean, that's like saying the people didn't have an important job. I mean, I buried the man who was part of the architecture for the Empire State Building. They're important. They did stuff, right?
Everybody's
So
important.
let's not
Everybody,
forget that.
anybody that has been alive
Yes.
has connected with others. And even if it made one connection in life, and obviously that could never be, but even if it was one person, they made a difference in somebody's life.
Somewhere.
And that
So
should be celebrated.
embrace that importance of saying goodbye. Find comfort in it so that the closure can happen, a path forward. And if you can't get forward, ask us to help you with the next step, Remember, you're celebrating their life in the most meaningful way possible that you know. Give us the chance to do it. It doesn't have to be expensive. There's a lot of different choices. You can be very creative and bring things in for us to help you.
Sure. And I think now more than ever, especially since we look at it more as a celebration of life than that somber, and that was a great word. I couldn't think of that word, but that says it all, a somber situation. There are more choices now than ever, especially with cremation being more popular. And that being said, there's so many misconceptions. You can have a service with cremation. You
can do it both ways. You can have a rental casket with somebody in there because you need to see them. Some people do, which is great. We love that. And then someone come in and do prayers or family eulogizes or one of the VFWs, whatever. And then you have it that way. That's a little more expensive, but you can do the cremation first. You can have the urn there. You can have a butterfly release. You can have a picture there, but it gives that space for people to come together. And then what do you want to do with the cremains? Do you want maybe that service or feeling or family or whatever to be while you're scattering, while you're out to sea scattering, while you're, different ways of scattering? Or do you want to have a spot like a niche to put them in and have a place to go? So there's all questions, and it can be as inexpensive as you want it to be. Or somewhere in the middle. Doesn't have to be the highest. Nobody's going to judge you because you didn't spend 20 grand. That's not the point of it. The point is to give you a space to do it.
And the freedom to do whatever you want that feels fit for that person. You can even do cremation with a burial. There's so many different variables here. But a lot of this territory, people don't know. You've never been through a funeral, potentially. You got to ask questions. You really do.
Because it's really, if you're a veteran, let's not miss out on all those benefits that are free, whether it's cremation or burial. Don't you want the honor guard? Don't you want the taps played? Don't you want that flag presented by a uniformed gentleman or lady? I think it's beautiful. I mean, people cry every single time it's done. And it must be important because they include it in every movie.
Yes. And you know what? We thank them for their service, and they deserve to get that type of send off. You have 2 locations in New Jersey. Tell us where they are.
So one is in Jackson, one is in Manchester. That's the one I live at, but they're both in Ocean County, New Jersey.
Yep. And thank you for saying live at, because this is a family-owned business. There's a lot of corporations taking over funeral homes now, and my personal opinion, you don't get that one-on-one. You don't get that family feel. You don't get the warm and fuzzy attention that you're going to get with somebody like yourself.
Yeah, you get answering services too, right? And then the response time is longer because they may not be local. Whoever's on call could be anywhere. Whereas I just nudge my husband and say, put your suit on, I'm taking a death call.
Answer the phone.
I answer the phone and then I nudge him. Hurry up, start getting dressed.
Every family, everybody has their jobs. Thank you so much. I want to tell everybody, OliverieFuneralHome.com is the website. And thank you for today.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it.
Great. Nice talking to you again. I have fun here.
Same here. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.